Hey guys, Zomfox here, and today it's time to do the Week 10 power rankings for the 2023 USFL season. We're just 1 week away from finding out what 4 teams make the playoffs, and, well, no team got eliminated this week. Every single team still can make the playoffs, and only one team is clinched, so the power rankings still very much are completely up in the air in terms of which teams make the playoffs. So, without further ado, coming at number 8, the Panthers. Is anyone shocked at this? I mean, the Maulers weren't really that good a team, and then the Panthers ended up looking like trash against them. Josh Love, man, let me just put if the Panthers get eliminated, that eliminated video is just going to be me basically bashing Josh Love. The dude has had like 2 good games, and then every other game he's basically been mid or terrible. I still believe they should have given Eric B a shot. I mean, I guess he must have been really bad in practice for him to cut him. But look, Love threw 4 interceptions in this game and managed to stay in it. He had a 50 passer rating. That is horrific. He didn't even complete 60% of his passes. It's just, you don't throw 4 interceptions and win a game. It ain't even like the Maulers, did insane. Both teams had the same amount of yardage, but the Maulers had the ball for significantly longer. The Maulers averaged 3.6 yards of play. That is insanely low from what we usually see, and they were able to easily win this game. At basically no point was I like, oh, the Panthers can win this game. No, it was just, oh my God, Love, stop throwing dumb AF passes. It was just, you had either a couple bounce balls, tip balls, but you had a couple really just bad. It's just, this was a bad game for Panthers fans. This was bad. Now, thankfully, the Generals did beat the Stars, so the Panthers are a winning in. In fact, every team in the North is literally winning in Week 10. I don't know. I don't have that much faith in the Panthers. This was a really bad look for them. Maybe Love has his patented random awesome game, but we'll see. I mean, look at them in the point score and point differential. They usually were teetering at the bottom. They are the bottom. They're only the bottom in point score by a little bit, but then you realize that them and Pittsburgh are just significantly less than Memphis, who's sixth. Point differential, they're over a full. They're a touchdown and a 2 point conversion away from the next team. Minus 47 is really bad. So they suck at both points scored and point differential. It's just, I mean, come on, this team, they start off like 2-0 and they've won one game or won like one game since. I mean, what am I supposed to say? Like, they're an incredible team. They've won one game since they started 2-0. That's 1-6 record in the last 7 games. I mean, hey, it's like I said, they only need to win one, but we'll see. I doubt it, but maybe. And then coming at number 7 is the team that beat them, the Maulers. The Maulers end up not changing because they really shouldn't. I've seen some people online put them like a lot higher or put them like in the 6th or 5. Nah. The Mars are still 7. Look, Panthers haven't looked that good. They just got like one win, and that's basically all they've got in the last few weeks. And it was like okay, they won a game, congrats. But, I mean, there was one game. The Maulers, they won this game just by being okay. And in terms of their stats, the only stat they're good at really is the major ones is turnover differential, where they are +6, which is like by far the best in the league. That's the only reason they're really even competing. The fact is that, and to be fair, this was helped by the fact they got a +4 turnover differential in this last game. But I mean, T. Will is still proving to be the best quarterback the new iteration Maulers have had. A 93 quarterback or a passer rating on 24 attempts for 58 completion percentage, 166 yards, 1 TD, 0 picks. And the fact is, they won a game without him being the leading rusher. Groshek and London did better than him. But I can't help but feeling that this team is just, they really are the value version Generals, which is ironic because they play the Generals next week for the playoffs. But it's like you have DeAndre, then it's like, Mom, can we have DeAndre Johnson? We have DeAndre Johnson at home, and DeAndre Johnson at home is Troy Williams. Or can we have Darius Victor and Trey Williams? We have them at home. It's Madre London and Garrett Groshek. It just feels like they're kind of like the off-brand version of the Generals, which is ironic because they both have the same record and both can win next week. But if you go down the list, you're going to say that the Generals beat him in all 3 of those guys. Chris Blewett had another really solid game, 5 for 5 total kicks, 4 for 4 field goals. It's just the Mars, they really don't look that good. I really just, my heart, my brain, my gut says that these 2 teams are the teams that end up losing in the North, and the 2 teams ranked above them do make the playoffs when we get that rematch in the North. But we'll see. It's one game. You're talking about football. Anything can happen. So we'll see. Coming at number 6 is going to be the New Jersey Generals. The Generals moved up a couple spots because, well, they finally looked like the Generals. It's been like 6 weeks since we've seen this. Well, not 6 weeks. Well, it's been about like 5 weeks since we've seen this Generals team. Generals team that's safe with the ball, that does very solid but light passing, only 20 attempts, and runs the ball with authority. This is what we've been waiting to see. Ironically, they didn't even have, I'm saying ironically a lot, they didn't even win the time possession battle. But to be fair, that's a large part due to the fact the Stars turned the ball over 3 times, so the Generals got a lot of good field position in the game. And they did what they always do. They had a really solid yards per play at 7. They had Victor had a really solid game, 2 TDs, 51 yards rushing and 11 attempts. His long was only 9, so his 4.6 yards per attempt is really like legit almost that good. And the fact is that T Will, the running back T Will, he was really solid in his own right. 40 yards on 6 attempts for a touchdown, with granted a 22-yard long. He had a really solid game, and he's been very underrated this season. And then DeAndre, in his game back from injury to do this, 109 passer rating, 200 total yards passing. He had 29 yards in the ground on 7 attempts. Was really impressive. Look, there's not really much to say about the Generals. Really not that great in any stat, but rushing with their number one. I didn't even bother to put it up there because they're number one in rushing. They've still been a lot to be desired in their ground attack. I want to say this is just because they didn't have a lot of long possessions. But the fact that they were able to put up 37 points in a game is really insane. They usually don't do that. Them allowing 33 points and nearly blowing it in the end is a bad sign. But they did get the W done. And I mean, the fact is that when you look at them in their point score and point differential, they're middle of the road in point scored at 181. You're on that bottom half spectrum. But look at point differential. Believe it or not, they're third in the league. Now, granted, Birmingham and New Orleans are just significantly higher than everybody else. But they're ahead of the team that had a 5-game win streak in the Showboats. They're ahead of a team that had a 4-game win streak in the Gamblers. They're ahead of their other competitors in the North. They're the third best team in point differential. So, all in all, I think the Generals, they're looking to make the playoffs, and I do think they're going to beat the Maulers. It would be funny if they ended up losing and basically passed the torch of team with dual threat QB and 2 good running backs with that relies on defense. We'll see. I'm going to have them at 6. I think that they're a solid team, but I don't think they're better than the Stars. I'll get to that when I get to them. So, yeah. Now, coming in at number 5, the Houston Gamblers. Yes, I still have a team in the North higher than the South. Look, I think a lot of people really overreacted this week. I think it was like USFL update on Instagram. He put like the entire South above the North, which is just not true. The Stars are not the 7th best team in the league. As for this though, look, the Gamblers got pwned. You can't even blame it on turnovers because both teams had 2 fumbles lost and 1 interception. In fact, the Gamblers should have easily won this. They had 3 extra drives at 14 versus the Stallions 11. They beat them by 17 minutes in time possession. Yet they still lost in their yards per play by literally half. They had 3.4 to the Stallions 6.8. And their total plays, they obliterated them by 26, only to then be obliterated by 60 yards in total yards. Essentially, they didn't do anything with what they had. Look, they just got outclassed. I mean, they're like the second to worst team in points allowed. They're -3 in the turnover differential, which is worse in the league. And their third down percentage, well, 46.7 being second is not bad, and that's a really great number. You realize that number used to be like 54%. Then it dropped to like 52%. Then 50. It keeps going down. It's like the opposite of the Stars in their rushing attack. The Gamblers' third down percentage has been getting progressively worse every week. That's bad. Gamblers, I think they lose next week. I really do. It's going to be either the Showboats or Breakers who make the playoffs, and the other team in the South, I feel. We'll see. It's just the Gamblers. They lost a lot in that game where they had both Thompson and Kenji play really bad when they lost. That was a huge loss for them, and I really don't think they're going to recover from that. Now, coming in number 4 is the only North team in the top 4 in the Stars. Look, the Stars barely lost this game, despite the fact that they turned the ball over 3 times compared to the Generals not turning the ball over. So the fact they did that, and the fact that Cookus, if you eliminate the fumble he had an unbelievable game again. This team is the best in the North. They are. The rushing yards per game is still 8th, but just like before, it was up. I don't have the full stat, but they had like 100 yards in this game. And that was even without Colburn playing. Now, the defense, that's bad. 227, the worst in points allowed, is not a good sign, especially when you give up 37 to the Generals. It's like the opposite of the Generals. You're not supposed to score this much against the Generals, but the Generals are not supposed to score that much against you, so it's a bad thing. But like I said, Cook is 109 passer rating, another really solid quarterback performance, 25 of 39 for 64 completion percentage, 260 yards passing, 3 TDs to 0 interceptions, and 59 yards on the ground. I don't know. It's just I think the Stars, they are still the best team in the North. I think that they're gonna. I hope the Panthers win as a Panthers fan, but I think the Stars are gonna end up beating them in that game. I think the Stars they're riding the right wave. Even though they lost this game, they're gonna look at it and say, "Wow, we turned the ball over 3 times, then still nearly got a end of the game comeback." They're fine. I think they're gonna win. They're gonna make the playoffs, and they're probably gonna be in the title game again. Now coming in number 3 is the Memphis Showboats. They fall 1 spot. I mean, it happened again. I mean, it's like that meme. It happened again. It happened again. They got another complete annihilation game. 31-3. This is just like the Stallions when they beat them by 40. This is another bad one. Cole Kelly had a really bad game, 23 of 41, a sub 57 completion percentage, and it wasn't helped by any yards per attempt. He only had 5.5. TD interception ratio, 0-3, a 41 passer rating. That's even worse than Love, who threw 4 picks. And the worst part is they tied them in basically every stat. In fact, they did better than them in the possession stats. They had more plays for more yards and more yards per play. So why'd they lose? Not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, but 5 turnovers. 5 turnovers is just, you can't have that. It's no surprise they lost this game. You throw 3 interceptions, you fumble the ball twice, you're going to get beat. Doesn't matter how much better you played. Now, I think this is the reason why I kept them at 3, didn't put the Stars ahead of them or the Gamblers. The fact that they did put up very solid stats compared to the Breakers, despite the interceptions. They still had more yards. They still had more yards per play, which is the big one. But, I mean, the fact is that this team and their overall team stats, QBR, they're the worst in the league or passer rating. That's been throughout the whole year, basically, and that's a stat you don't want to be in the bottom at. The Stallions have been excellent because Magoo has been the most consistent passer in the league. Showboats are last in that. Rushing yards per game, they're second to last. There are, just like the Stars, doing better at that. But yards per game, they're 7th as well, and that's really not going to change. This team isn't the best at doing both. So, I don't know. This team might make the playoffs. I hope they do. It'd be really cool for Memphis, but, I mean, they're not going to have a home game at Memphis, so it really doesn't matter. But Showboats, I think, deserve to be at 3. They're solid, but, I mean, come on. They're not the team. I think we all know that. They're solid, but that's about all I can say for them. Coming in at number 2 is the New Orleans Breakers. Well, they've salvaged their season. They got a win, and they're in. They're the only team in the South that's winning in, and it's because they beat the Showboats. Look, this team went from being the highest of highs to the lowest of lows this season, and they can still end up making the playoffs. This is very reminiscent of last year's game against the Bandits, which ironically is what the Showboats are now, is that they needed to win that game to clinch the playoffs and to eliminate the Bandits, and they ended up winning it. And it's just like this one. They got the win. Now, it doesn't guarantee them the playoffs, but it gives them a really good shot at it. And the best part is they did it without really doing what they usually do. MBT didn't have to throw 40 times. He only threw 16 passes, yet was very efficient. A 92.7 passer rating. 88 yards isn't a lot. 5.5 yards per attempt. But he was efficient. Not great, but just decent. The one issue I will say is that it's the same issue that's been going on for the last couple of weeks. Their rushing game has become really bad. Look, Wes Hills had another game where he couldn't even get 3 yards per attempt. And then their backup, Habibi Like, was even worse. 2.2. They had 2 running backs play for significant snaps, 30 total, and they averaged under 2.5 combined. That's horrific. And the fact is that that's been the norm the past few weeks. Ever since they were 4-0, this has been basically the norm. They can't really run the ball that well. Now, yes, their Breakers, only line 160 points is the best in the league. Passing yards per game, second, or the best in the league. Yards per game, second best in the league. That's all fine and dandy, but this team isn't running the ball whatsoever. And fact is that the other teams that can, at the moment, the Stars are a better rushing team, which, think about that, and that's not even like a controversial opinion. At the moment, the Stars are a better rushing team, despite the fact that they're last, and the Breakers are up there. But the Breakers, they are number 2 in the league. You want an easy way to look at it? They're the only other team besides the Stallions who have a positive point differential. They're plus 46. Did this game help? Of course. But even without it, they were still up there by over 15. So they still already had a really solid point differential compared to the rest of the league besides Stallions, and now it's just even better. And points scored, they're second as well. So they're still up there. And the fact that their defense was able to get 5 turnovers is a huge deal. Now, the big problem I do have is the fact that I didn't show the turnover stats because I usually don't show them unless it's like, top 2 or bottom 2. The fact that a plus 5 turnover differential game doesn't put you at number 1 in turnover differential is really scary. So Hopefully they don't turn the ball over a lot. This next week's matchup is huge. So we'll see what ends up happening. It's a big matchup. We'll see. And then number 1 is the Birmingham Stallions. Let's just show it up again. They're number 1 in points scored by 40. They're number 1 in point differential by nearly 40. Come on. So even if you get rid of their 40-point shellacking of the Showboats, you got to get rid of the Breakers' 30-point shellacking of the Showboats. And even if you do that, they're still beating them by 40, nearly. They're the best team in the league by a mile again. I don't even have to show anything. They clinched the playoffs. They're the only team that's done that. We're heading into week 10, and they're the only team that's done that. They've clinched at worst a 7-3 record. That's the worst they can finish. So they had an outstanding year. They are the best team in all of spring football. I don't think that's even remotely controversial. They're by far better than everyone else. Is this team as dominant as last year? No, but overall, the talent, I would say, this year is better than last year. And they're still the best team in the league without Bo Scarborough, without Jamar Smith, who are the starters. Because now we're saying CJ Marable is legit better. We're saying Magoo is legit better. We weren't saying that at the start of the year, but we are now. So, they're number 1, obviously. So, that'll do it for this week's Power Rankings. Make sure to subscribe and hit the bell. We have at least 3 videos a week during the season, and naturally next week we have a lot of eliminated and playoff-bound videos, a lot of playoff videos, a lot of stuff coming out next week. This week we still got a couple videos, so be on the lookout for those, and as always, have a great night.